Imagine flying into one of Europe's busiest airports and discovering that the runway lies several meters below sea level. Around you are cities, farms, roads, and millions of homes standing on land that water once covered. This is the Netherlands, a country whose survival depends on an extraordinary system of dunes, dikes, barriers, canals, and pumps. If that machinery stopped permanently, water would begin reclaiming the lowest areas within days. The Netherlands is not simply protected from the sea. In many places, it has been physically built out of it. The country sits in the delta of several major European rivers, including the Rhine. For thousands of years, these rivers deposited sand and silt across a flat, marshy landscape. Peat formed beneath the wetlands, while tides and storms repeatedly flooded the coast. Early communities could not hold back the water, so they raised their homes instead. They carried soil by hand and created artificial hills high enough to shelter farms and villages during floods. Some of these ancient mounds still support churches and houses today. Around 1,000 years ago, the inhabitants changed strategy. Instead of retreating whenever the water rose, they began surrounding larger areas with earthen walls. These early dikes protected fields and connected settlements, but they also created a shared responsibility. One neglected section could collapse and flood every family behind it. Communities therefore established water boards to inspect defenses, collect taxes, and organize repairs. These institutions became some of the oldest democratic bodies in the country. Long before the modern Dutch state existed, people were already voting for officials responsible for managing water. This cooperation helped shape Dutch society. Rich landowners and poor farmers faced the same flood, so survival required negotiation and collective action. Arguments could continue only until the water arrived. Then everyone needed the same result: a dike strong enough to hold. Keeping the sea outside was only half the challenge. Rain, river water, and moisture still accumulated inside the protected land. Windmills provided an ingenious answer. Many famous Dutch windmills were not built to grind grain. They powered wheels and screws that lifted water into higher canals. From there, it could flow toward rivers or the sea. The drained land inside a ring of dikes is called a polder. Every polder depends on continuous water management. Stop pumping, and the land gradually returns to a lake. Beginning in the 15th century, rows of windmills drained entire bodies of water. Lakes disappeared, and fertile fields, roads, and villages replaced them. Schiphol Airport now stands on the floor of one such former lake. The historic windmills at Kinderdijk preserve the appearance of this earlier system, although thousands of modern pumping stations now perform most of the work. Drainage created a dangerous side effect. When peat loses water, it dries, contracts, and sinks. The more efficiently the land is drained, the lower parts of it become. Lower ground then requires stronger dikes and more pumping, producing a cycle that never truly ends. The Netherlands survives through permanent maintenance rather than a final victory over nature. The cost of failure became horrifyingly clear during the night of January 31, 1953. A severe North Sea storm combined with a high tide and drove water against the southwestern coast. Aging defenses failed in dozens of places. Icy water rushed into sleeping communities, cutting electricity and communications. Families climbed onto roofs and into attics as buildings collapsed beneath the waves. Fishermen, soldiers, radio operators, and volunteers joined the rescue. But more than 1,800 people in the Netherlands lost their lives. During the disaster, a damaged dike threatened a heavily populated region. A local captain steered his barge into the opening, wedging the vessel across the breach. The improvised barrier slowed the flow long enough for workers to reinforce it with sandbags. Unlike the fictional tale of a child stopping a leak with his finger, this was a real act of courage that helped prevent an even greater catastrophe. After the flood, the Netherlands began the Delta Works, a vast network of dams, sluices, dikes, and movable storm barriers. One of its most impressive structures is the Oosterschelde barrier. Engineers originally planned to close the estuary completely, but fishermen and environmental campaigners warned that doing so would destroy tidal habitats and shellfish grounds. The final design allows seawater to move normally through enormous gates. When a dangerous storm approaches, those gates descend and seal the estuary. Near Rotterdam, the Maasland barrier protects one of the world's busiest shipping routes. A permanent dam would block vessels, so engineers constructed two enormous floating gates. When computers predict a dangerous surge, the gates move into the channel, meet in the middle, fill with water, and sink into position. The system keeps the route open during normal conditions while providing protection when the sea becomes threatening. Dutch engineering also transformed the former Zuiderzee. A 32-kilometer dam separated it from the North Sea, creating the freshwater IJsselmeer. Large sections were then drained to form Flevoland, an entire province built on reclaimed seabed. Archaeologists later discovered hundreds of shipwrecks beneath its farms. Today, people cycle, build homes, and grow crops where fishing boats once sailed. Several popular stories simplify this complicated history. The boy who supposedly saved the country by placing his finger in a dike came from a 19th-century American novel, not ancient Dutch folklore. Amsterdam does not float like Venice either. Much of the city rests on piles driven through soft ground to a stable layer below. Its canals are beautiful, but beneath the scenery is a carefully engineered foundation. Today, the Dutch approach is changing again. Rising seas, heavier rain, and stronger river floods make it impossible to solve every problem by continually raising walls. Under the Room for the River program, some dikes have been moved inland, allowing water to spread safely across designated floodplains. Certain farms and polders have been returned to water so nearby towns can remain secure. Rotterdam has public spaces that temporarily store stormwater, while floating homes rise and fall along fixed supports. Along the coast, the sand motor uses currents instead of fighting them. Engineers placed an enormous quantity of sand at one location and allowed waves to distribute it naturally along nearby beaches. It is a striking reversal. After centuries of forcing water away, the Netherlands is learning to guide its movement. The country's greatest achievement is not that it defeated the sea. The sea cannot be permanently defeated. Its achievement is the creation of a society that observes risk, plans far ahead, maintains its defenses, and changes strategy when conditions change. The Netherlands exists because pumps keep turning, barriers remain ready, and millions of people accept that safety is a shared responsibility. It is a nation built not through one heroic moment, but through 1,000 years of patience, engineering, and cooperation.